Committee management is a huge part of my job. So we just had the 36th annual kidney ball 2 Saturdays ago, and that committee is definitely the biggest committee we have. This past year, it was roughly like 13 to 15 members, including a chair, who is awesome, and we actually cornered him at last year's kidney ball and asked him to chair again, and he said yes. The rest of the committee, we put out job descriptions for all the committee members so they are well aware of, what is expected of them. We kind of talk through it. What I like to do is try and meet with each committee member individually or a phone call, whatever works best for them, and really, set out the expectations. And this all happens very early on, so our event is typically in November. I like to get this started in sometime February, March time frame, so we have plenty of time to make enough asks, and at that point obviously you need to have most of the event details hammered out too. But after that, it's essentially gathering all the committee members. We do have an in-person meeting at the very beginning, hosted typically by the chair, where we hand out lots of materials, sort of just have a general conversation about goals, about what each person thinks they're capable of doing. And sometimes that's a financial commitment, other times it's something else related to their skill set based on what their profession is. For example, this year we had a new committee member who sort of came to us totally organically, and he had just retired as the VP of Public Relations for Marriott International. He thought he would be able to do a certain amount fundraising wise. That didn't really pan out, but he provided, invaluable PR. He was extremely involved even though he wasn't really able to meet the financial commitment. But otherwise, once we have that conversation, my job is to then follow up with everyone, make sure everyone is providing what we set out, which for me has been what we ask of each committee member is to put together a prospect list of, colleagues, family, friends, whoever they think they will be able to tap. Once they put together that list, I then compile all of the lists together, and I end up managing that whole list. I say, who have you reached out to? What was their response? And they'll say, so I've got a soft commitment from X person, and I'll put that in the notes. And then it's really up to me as the lead on this event to follow up with them, because as we all know, people don't necessarily do that on their own. They all have their own lives and jobs. So we provide, any materials they need. Obviously, all the collateral materials. We have a save the date, we have a brochure, but like a solicitation letter template that they can use and kind of modify if they want. We have several people who are personally affected by the cause who want to throw in their story, which we always encourage as much as possible, because that we find really helps to get people to commit. After that initial meeting, setting out all of the expectations and then the timeline and saying, okay, this is where we need to be by this point. So, in advance, as part of the materials that we give out, there is a full year-long basically timeline, and it's monthly. We need to get to this amount of money this month. These are all the other things that are going to be happening kind of behind the scenes this month that they don't necessarily need to know, but it just kind of keeps us on track. Staying on top of their prospect lists. If eventually it comes to every other week or so, I, have some sort of communication, whether that's just an update about where we are, based on the year, or, these are all the meeting dates. One of the main challenges actually is getting everyone to participate in those, especially if it's a conference call. It's very easy to just say, oh, I got caught up or whatever. For that reason, we actually do our conference calls at 8 a.m. usually, before the workday. People are getting their kids off to school, whatever the case may be. So that is somewhat helpful. The other piece of it is managing the committee members who commit to a great deal up front and then are sort of a bust. So we had that with several of our committee members this year, which is basically we had awesome new committee members. We were so excited to get new people. One in particular, had a family connection to the cause, had a great network, seemingly, was, a professional, a senior professional at a major government contracting company, and, gave us this huge number out the gate that he would be able to do. Fast forward, didn't even come to the event, contributed personally, but raised nothing on his own. And, that was a real disappointment. I know, personally in my management style, although I send out the mass committee communications, I do follow up with everyone individually, which really does affect the bottom line. And that's obviously the whole point of this committee management, is to make sure you're hitting your goals, which is challenging when, you have people tell you one thing and then just not produce at all. It's obviously all down to the bottom line. So, we hear from a committee member and they say, oh, I'm not going to be able to do what I said I would. So then it's up to us, hopefully that happens early on. And in our case, that did somewhat, so we actually were able to recruit some new committee members. But you see where else you can pull from to make up for, whatever is lacking. I think, one of the other things that we did was really try and bulk up the other pieces of the event, which for the Kidney Ball are the mission appeal and the auctions. Or, if some committee members are proving to not really, do what they said they were going to do, we can say, okay, so you're not being super successful with the sponsorship piece, but do you have any connections for the auction? So, you just kind of take a step back and you see what else you can do that, you on the staff level have control over. I think they should, first and foremost, have a really good grasp on the event itself and this plan for how you're going to get to where you need to be. Secondly, I think, and this is just kind of how I operate in general, is getting to know the people you're working with. There's no way that Mark Testoni would have agreed to chair this event again had Michelle and I not created this great relationship with him, where, he knew the kind of job we do and what he'd be getting himself into, and how it is to work with us. And, now we've got this great, even better relationship. But, we certainly wouldn't have been able to recruit him had we not already built that up. So I think, for me especially, and I think for anyone starting out, take the time, call, each person individually, try to get to know them a little bit. Not everyone is going to be a social butterfly, but, everyone is doing this for a reason, and it's finding out what that reason is, and then just making them feel comfortable in their role, and, building up a trust between you and them, and knowing, you are there to support them in what they're doing, and they're not just out there on their own, raising money for something they have no connection to.